So the rundown up on the screen shows us that we're going to start with the Twitter Files 5.0, and those just dropped a short time ago. But I want to start with Elon Musk's tweet in all of this. So Elon tweeting to kind of kick this off, Barry Weiss picking up the ball on this, but he tweets this. Under pressure from hundreds of activist employees, Twitter deplatforms Trump, a sitting U.S. president, even though they themselves acknowledge that he didn't violate the rules. That was the tweet that he published just a short time ago. Under pressure from hundreds of activist employees, Twitter deplatforms Trump, a sitting U.S. president, even though they themselves acknowledge that he didn't violate the rules. And then here, of course, starts the Twitter thread.
So the way that the narrative is presented by Barry Weiss, and it has been building up over the weekend, we saw one per day of these Twitter files. It's basically a document dump, and a journalist is synthesizing what they have read and presenting to us exactly how we sort of had thought that it happened, but weren't completely sure, is that there was not a clear violation of terms of service, and that there were people inside of Twitter who were actively rooting for the president to just take one more step, just cross this line a little bit, see if we can, so that we can kick him off, even though there were internal discussions that it wasn't a clear-cut rule. In this instance, in this thread, Barry Weiss presents leaders.
Should we go through them?
You want to do one by one? Sure,
yeah.
Let's do it.
We're going to start hitting them here. So let's go. So here we go. So let's start with number one. On the morning of January 8th, President Donald Trump, with one remaining strike before being at risk of permanent suspension from Twitter, tweets twice. That's hard to say. Twitter tweets twice. So at 6:46 a.m., the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America First, make America Great Again, will have a giant voice long in the future. They will be not disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. That was the tweet at 6:46 a.m.
Remember when President Trump used to tweet so early in the morning?
Yes.
Remember, this was our lives. A few minutes later, 7:44 a.m., to those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th.
That's right. And so again, early in the morning, and when I was a co-host of Fox and Friends, he used to call into the show like super early. He used to tweet at us like super early. Number four, for years, Twitter had resisted calls from both internal and external to ban Trump on the grounds that blocking a world leader from the platform or removing their controversial tweets would hide important information that should be able to see and debate. And then our mission is to provide a forum that enables people to be informed and engage their leaders directly. The company wrote back in 2019, ability to hold their leaders and hold them to account is written on the Twitter blog in 2019.
Now, she points out that after January 6th, as Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger both have documented, pressure grew both inside and outside of Twitter to ban Trump, and there were dissenters inside Twitter. This one lone dissenting voice, she says there are a few, but they are very few, says, maybe because I'm from China, I deeply understand how censorship can destroy the public conversation. This person writes back to sort of, pacify. I would say it's a bit condescending. I get that, they say, but it's important to understand that censorship by a government is very different than censorship of the government. I stared at this for a long time, and I was like, is that better? Right. Should we censor? Are we arguing for one is okay? The First Amendment in the U.S. and similar legislation in other countries with similar concepts exists specifically to prevent the government from silencing the people. And I assume this is the Chinese person responding back. I respect that, but realistically, we impose far stricter rules on effectively everyone else on the platform. I think that's the reply.
Yeah.
We can't see the avatars.
Right.
So I'm assuming the Chinese person is pushing back and is, again, pushed back again. If we start labeling, restricting his tweets when they became a threat to democracy, seemed like that was our red line. Yesterday, he clearly attempted to overthrow our democratic system or government and showed no signs of remorse. If this is not a clear reason to suspend him, I'm not sure what would be. Shrug. Okay, again, but these are feelings, right? These are how people are feeling. They're not quoting policy.
So voices like that one, Barry Weiss writes, a lot of alliteration tonight, but voices like that one appear to have been a distinct minority within the company. Across Slack channels, many Twitter employees were upset that Trump hadn't been banned earlier. Now, this is really important to think about because we have the fact that we have Slack channel updates. like real-time communications back and forth, which is where we got a lot of the Yoel Roth communications, right? It's not happening on Twitter. It's not in Twitter DMs. It's all Slack channel back communications and not emails. So forget even emails. It's like up-to-date instantaneous communication internally.
Yes. As you know, on behalf of the journalists who are doing this sounds like an awful task to go through pages and pages of people's Slack channels. Now, the next one she presents, after January 6th, Twitter employees organized to demand their employer ban Trump. One said there's a lot of employee advocacy happening here. It's just, like, hey, if we banned Alex Jones for Get Your Rifles, then he exceeded this standard. This is what we all want. It very much was, this is what is the opinion of people working at Twitter. I don't think we need to read through this one.
No. I mean, it's a lot of like bending over backwards. It's a lot of like bending over backwards, like to sort of massage a policy. Like, well, we got to fight, like basically under the terms of service, like Trump didn't violate the terms of service. So we've got to like figure out a way to like massage things publicly to make it seem like he did.
Right. I mean, there's
I feel like they always...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like they always are very vague with their terms and service intentionally. And I feel like this is for anything where we're getting like legislation and stuff. It's always open to interpretation because they have to have ways that they can kind of interpret something that if it says one thing, it's not crystal clear so that it could be interpreted in a way they need it to be for a certain situation.
Yes. But it's clear that they don't even have the linchpin in this policy in order to hang him on. And they're looking for it based on emotion. This is the thing that's bothered me so much of watching the reactions to this online, is that people are reacting based on what they want to feel. And they want to feel that banning Trump was valid because they didn't like Trump, which is it's a valid emotion. He wasn't likable by a lot of people. Sure, that's fine. But they can't separate how they want to feel validated from the clear wrong that's happening here, which is that there's a cabal of people with a lot of power making decisions for everybody that makes policy, and they are in fact influenced by government agencies like the Justice Department. That should feel wrong to everybody. And the sort of gumbying that I've seen from people on the left who only want to feel validated on their hate of Trump is making them look away from this, which threatens all of us. And that's why I feel so just terrified. Like, really, I feel really upset about this to the point that I've been dreaming about it.
Well said. I mean, I think, and bravo, I think that was very well said. And I think to think that how did a guy like Yoel Roth literally become one of the most powerful people in the United States? Think about that. Here's a guy who literally influenced an election with what he was doing internally.
Yes.
Sitting down, meeting with the FBI on a regular basis. Sitting down and then, literally while Jack is on vacation, shaping policy based on what he felt he should do internally to ban people, block accounts, deplatform during an election.
And his language is very much like, yes, those people came to me. Yes, I'm keeping a temperature on this group's feelings. Yes, I'm representing them. So he's really like playing preschool teacher here. Like, let's take into account how everyone feels and then we'll make a decision. Not based on what's right or wrong and what's good for everybody. It's absolutely not altruism. It is self-serving for a small group of people. And it feels to me this is the language of people who are drunk on their own power.
Yeah, because you can see it in some of the emails. Oh, sorry, David. I'll just finish this thought.
Yeah.
In these emails that he has about, or these Slack messages that Yoel Roth has with coworkers where he's saying, you go through all these things and you just realize, these guys are so full of themselves, absolutely so full of themselves. And he's like, oh, it's such a busy day because I've got to go meet with Apple and then I have to go meet with the FBI. So I might not be able to get back to you. And his like Slack message response from somebody is like, oh, that sounds like a crazy day. Well, don't worry about it. I got the meeting. I'll let you know if anything comes up. He's like, I know it's crazy. These are very important. I'm such an important person. I got to meet with Apple, then I got to sit down with the FBI again for our weekly meeting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're
people
such
who
an
talk like
person.
that. This is just like my own personal opinion, but people who talk about themselves so self-importantly and busy, I want them to spend an afternoon with 2-year-olds. That's just, that's how I feel about that kind of language.
David, go ahead, sir.
Well, I was gonna say, like, the left pretends that they care so much about elections. There's like, we got to do everything we can to get every vote counted, minorities, all this other stuff. And they should want this information just as much as we do. But it's funny how all of a sudden you are a right-wing nut job if you are on board with them releasing these files. And it's like, everybody should want this, because this is not only does this have something to do with our democracy, but this shows you how lockstep it was. The media was saying the same thing that Twitter was being told about the laptop story, which means they were getting information from the same people. Our media, and all this stuff, it was coming down from the same voices, and that is important for all of us.
Yes, I am desperately waiting for the Wall Street Journal, for any of the mainstream media, for the New York Times to say, hey, YouTube and Facebook, what do you want to say about those things?
They're scrambling right now, guys. I'm telling you, I joked the other day that the YouTube file should come next. We're not going to see that. But Alphabet.
But should somebody be asked? Why is nobody asking?
Well, there are members of Congress are about to ask and hold one. At least Kevin McCarthy says this. We'll see if he actually does this. Hauls members of Google, YouTube, Facebook in front of Congress and demands to know, was there any collusion? Do you have members of the FBI, the CIA sitting on your staff, former members of the CIA? What were you being fed from the Department of Homeland Security? Because now we know that the DHS was incredibly involved in this. So Twitter is just the tip of the iceberg. And why is Google, Google is quiet right now. Google, like YouTube, they're probably sitting back saying, wait a second, we probably want to rethink our policy on banning people and banning accounts. I just would wish to be a fly on the frickin' wall inside of Google headquarters right now.
Right. And are they erasing things right now? Because they're thinking what if somebody came and saw these back channel communications about these decisions?
Of course. Come on. Does anyone for a second not think right now that the executives at Google are not deleting shit? Yes, they are setting shit on fire as we speak. I mean, I absolutely believe that. And by the way, if there's anyone at Google or YouTube that wants to reach out to Redacted, we are a news channel. Please reach out to us. We would love to hear your story.
Facebook, same.
Facebook as well. Yeah. We would love to hear from any former employees. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm collecting stuff. I would love to hear from you. So please send it to me. I would love to cover it here on Redacted.
Let's get back to this. Ooh. I think we left off on number 10.
I've got my work shirt on tonight because I've got to go to work.
You do, yeah.
You need to turn that fire down a little bit.
I know, it's getting hot in here, in this fire in this room. Can we turn that fire down over there? Don't throw another log on there. Number 10
is more activism. It's pretty obvious. We need to ban this guy. We need extraordinary leadership. What they wanted was to be inspired by Jack kicking this guy off so that they could feel validated. And you have to feel sorry for people who have felt, sorry, let me get in my shot, who have felt riled up towards hatred of Trump and then now are looking for this final validation. She says, number 11, in the early afternoon of January 8th, the Washington Post published an open letter signed by over 300 Twitter employees to CEO Jack Dorsey demanding Trump's ban. They said, we must examine Twitter's complicity in what President-elect Biden has rightly termed insurrection.
Oh, he's rightly termed it. Number 12, but the Twitter staff assigned to evaluate tweets quickly concluded that Trump had, here's the piece de resistance. Am I using that correctly when I say piece de resistance?
I'm not sure the pronunciation is right, but that is the way that you're supposed to use it.
Okay, so this is, to me, this is it right here, number 12. But the Twitter staff assigned to evaluate tweets quickly concluded that Trump had not violated Twitter's policies. I think we'd have a hard time saying that this is incitement, wrote one staffer.
Now, I think you have to put this in the context of the Twitter files that I believe came on Sunday.
I will heart that.
Which was that after the riots, in the days immediately after, they were scrambling to say, can we punish him for this? Because Facebook had taken him down. Is there any way that we can, ban him too? They weren't able to. And the policy was, okay, we don't have a reason to ban him now, but we'll hit him super hard next time. And so we're going to consider that he's got 4 strikes and the 5th one will be the final straw. So they are actively all watching, it reminds me of that scene in Labyrinth where all the goblins are like, say it,
right. Or like word. Beetlejuice is like, come on. Come on,
Yeah.
you want to say it? You want to say it right now, Beetle? Come on, say it.
And so they are literally all around like goblins like this, waiting for her to say, do you know what she says? I wish the Goblin King would take you away right now. Okay, sorry.
So number 13 on the list. So here's really interesting. Number 13. It's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the ones who voted for him and not the terrorists. We can call him that, right? Call them that, right?
She's talking about January 6th protesters,
right?
Or whoever this was, he or she.
Another staffer agrees. I don't see the incitement angle here. I see that Blank has pinged us to ask us about incitement for the Donald J. Trump tweet and want to see if we can align with it. I don't see incitement of fear. What PC could it be trying to incite fear about? I don't see incitement of fear, on and on. I think we'd have a hard time saying that this is incitement. It's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the ones who voted for him and not the terrorists. We can call them that, right? Don't see incitement. So they're admitting. We don't see incitement.
No, they're trying to mold it into what they want it to be.
What if this will come up with their January 6th theories?
Well, and that's what people were saying.
Right.
That's what really pisses me off. Is people were saying, show me the tweets that he actually incited violence. Like, I could say something like that was completely peaceful, and one person could take it as inciting violence. You know what I mean? Like they could say, oh, I'm going to take action on that thing that he just said. Right. And it's like that we were asking, and you were conspiracy theorists for saying they took the tweets down, but people were convinced because they were taken down that they were insightful. But I saw the original tweets and they were not.
Yeah. By the way, people are asking me how they can contact me. They have some information regarding Google and Facebook. I'd love to hear from whistleblowers. You can email me, Clayton at Redacted.inc, not .com, Clayton at Redacted.inc, or just follow me on Twitter at Clayton Morris on Twitter and send me a DM. There's another way to do that. All right, number 15, Barry Weiss says, I'm also not seeing any clear or coded incitement in the Donald J. Trump tweet. I'll respond in the elections channel and say that our team has assessed and found no violations for the Donald J. Trump one. Wow. She does not just say that as an FYI, safety has assessed the Donald J. Trump tweet above and determined that there are no violations of our policy at this time. Goes on and on to say, basically, been begging and anticipating and attempting to raise the reality that if we made no intervention into what I saw occurring, people were going to die. She would testify at the House January 6th committee. Basically, I've been begging for people to ban his account because this was going to cause people to die.
Okay. Where are we? Number 18.
Number 18.
So then 7:44 a.m., we're just 1 hour past the original tweet. Twitter safety team decides that the tweet is not in violation, and they are unequivocal, says it's no clear vio. It's just to say he's not attending the inauguration. And then this sort of continued justification is some may be saying this is proof that he doesn't support a peaceful transition, which he didn't. He didn't show up to the inauguration. It was a peaceful transition, but it was a begrudging one, and that emotion is legal. You are allowed to begrudge your loss in a presidential campaign. Yeah. Totally legal. Yeah. You can say that.
What are we to say? And also, I just want to ask you, why are all these redacted? I just would love to know why all of these, we're allowed to see Yoel Roth's avatar and name.
Yeah.
Why are all these redacted?
I think because they're more public figure, they were more front facing for Twitter. And I think these are just regular employees and they don't want them getting attacked. I can see that.
Maybe.
Damn.
Sorry, I smashed my mug.
But there's text here.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they're adding each other to reply. I can't think of any other reason.
Number 19, to understand Twitter's decision to ban Trump, we must consider how Twitter deals with other heads of state and political leaders, including Iran, Nigeria, Ethiopia. In 2018, Iran's Ayatollah al-Khamenei tweeted, Israel is a malignant cancerous tumor in the West Asian regions that has to be removed and eradicated, he wrote. Is it possible? And will it happen? And it will happen, he says.
Okay, the next ones I think we shouldn't show.
Okay.
Just because let's not put number 21 up. I will summarize it. In 2020, former Malaysian Prime Minister said there was a right for Muslims to actually go out and harm French people. Twitter did delete this tweet for glorifying violence, but he remains on the platform. The tweet can still be found on the Wayback Machine, but that Prime Minister was not booted. The 22, Muhammad Buhari, the president of Nigeria, incited violence against pro-Biafra groups said those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war will treat them in the language that they understand, which means violence. They were asking for violence. Number 23 was about Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed calling on citizens to take up arms against the Tigray region. We're not going to show that either. And then in February 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government threatened to arrest Twitter employees in India and to harm them for up to and incarcerate them for up to 7 years after they restored hundreds of accounts that had been critical of them, and Twitter did not ban Modi. Now, those are obvious examples of inciting to violence or threatening to violence or alluding to violence. It's not, we're not parsing words here. They said it. They said it.
Yeah, Barry Weiss, number 25. Now we can show this. But Twitter executives, we didn't want to put those up on the screen because it's calling for violence, and we didn't want to be guilty of calling for violence on our show. So that's why. And you
can find it on Twitter, but we have rules on the platforms that we're on. So we don't think that you're going to
on Twitter and Rumble and YouTube. Like, you can't call for violence, so we can't do that on our show either. But Twitter executives did not ban Trump, even though key staffers said that Trump had not incited violence, not even in a coded way. Less than 90 minutes after Twitter employees had determined that Trump's tweets were not in violation of Twitter policy, Vagina God, Twitter's head of legal policy and trust, asked whether it could in fact be coded incitement to further violence. See, they don't redact her.
Yeah.
We know that. We know her.
And she's saying, well, maybe we can interpret that this is coded as incitement. If anybody has any context or insight, please, I'm all ears. So she's not even completely convinced of this. She's asking for people to validate this. She's like, for instance, the term American patriots, they will not be disrespected. She's like, this is an interesting, can we say that American patriots is somehow a call to arms? Like the actual group itself.
Yeah, and then she goes on to say things escalate from there. Members of the team that came to view him as a leader of a terrorist group responsible for violence, deaths comparable to the Christchurch shooter or Hitler on that basis, and totality of his tweets, he should be deplatformed. So now it's like the swarming of the Twitterati. Like all of these people on Twitter, like, yeah, well, that one might not have. Okay, but all of the stuff that he said, he's like Hitler. That's literally what they said. So they come to him and basically compare him to the Christchurch shooter and all and on. So then it goes on from there. 2 hours later, Twitter executives host a 30-minute all-staff meeting. Dorsey, Vijaya God, answers staff questions as to why Trump wasn't banned yet, but they make some employees angrier. So they are kind of holding out, and it seems like Jack specifically was holding out on this. Who knows? We'll see like the totality of Jack in all of this. Multiple Twitter employees have quoted the banality of evil, suggesting that people implementing our policies are like Nazis following orders.
Okay. I mean, that's very self-referencing.
I would like to point out that you can make that comparison to anybody following orders. If somebody's like, hey, go do that thing, and somebody's like, yeah, no problem, boss. They're like, dude, you're just like a Nazi for following orders. That's not really it's just too easy of a comparison. Like, let's stop comparing people to that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Again, here we see from Yoel Roth, and he's sort of, again, collating attitudes of people who are talking to him, which just makes me wonder, like, what's that guy's day like? Just always on having chats on Slacks.
That's all he does, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, certainly a lot of people who are close to this decisions would feel safe, engaging here. It's a lot of like, are we going to have meaningful engagement? Just so used to throwing around these terms to get what you want.
So 1 hour later.
How fragile are these people? These people are so fragile because it's like, after this all happened and Trump was removed, they said they were like walking around and comforting people who were crying at their desks and stuff like that. It's like, what? Like, his tweets, like, are you that fragile that a tweet is going to like upset you that much?
Yes.
Maybe.
It's called snowflakes. Snowflakes are delicate. Barry Weiss says that 1 hour later, Twitter announces Trump's permanent suspension due to the risk of further incitement of violence.
Risk of
further incitement of violence.
Not
and remember,
doing
they couldn't point out what was the incitement of violence. So now risk of. Okay. Many at Twitter were ecstatic. Team Donald J. Trump is suspended. Piece of history. I feel like this is a piece of history. Oh my God, this is amazing. And big props to whoever in trust and safety is sitting there with a whack-a-moling these Trump accounts. Big props and so they're all like, because a lot of like fake accounts then popped up and tried to,
Yes.
By the next day, employees expressed.
You just passed over. It said Donald Trump Jr.'s account needs to be like scroll down.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. So let's get the rest of the family.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is mafia.
Now, here is where the drink of power starts to intoxicate. Is this next day, Twitter employees say, that was great, we did this. Now let's turn our attention to COVID. Now let's turn our attention to medical misinformation. It seems like a broader category of harmful content. We've laid a lot of groundwork for policy and product behavior through our work on COVID and the election, the misinfo policy team, along with folks in health experience, blah, 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 blah. Now we're focused, they say, on getting to a place of improved maturity and how our policies are actualized. And we have more to share on this soon. Yay! Exclamation point.
I wonder if that's Fauci's daughter that wrote that one.
Good question.
Hey, Dad, I got some great news for you.
I mean, you can see by the next one we're about to show you, it says, for the longest time, someone says Twitter's stance wasn't that we are not the arbiter of truth, which this person says didn't give me warm, fuzzy feelings. They wanted to feel, I guess, the opposite, in control of truth. That said, my dad's a doctor. I'm going to read this the way I say it. My dad's a doctor, and medical misinformation is a really hard topic. Sorry, I'm making fun, but it just seems like. So even for COVID-19, we only covered a narrow category of misinformation. For example, so this is something they're saying, should we edit this? This type of tweet is take vitamin C, vitamin D, elderberry, and xylitol with GSC daily to reduce COVID-19 risk. Is that good information, or should we get involved in that, right? Is that something we should?
So we want Twitter employees who are like,
whose dad's a doctor.
Yeah, my dad's a doctor, so I think we should really control what's being said on Twitter, and you shouldn't be talking about vitamin D on Twitter.
I have said the same thing about YouTube. It's like when they have something that says it's looked at by a real person, right? Do they have medical doctors sitting there waiting for anything that's COVID related to be like, let me cross-check this with all of the science in 10 minutes? Because that's how long it took them to review ours.
Yeah, when we got deplatformed for covering the Pfizer's documents, right? Pfizer releases their documents. We read them verbatim on air and get blocked and for misinformation. And then when we appealed it to YouTube, they said, well, we manually checked it. They checked it within like 5 or 6 minutes. And they're like, no, appeal rejected. Oh, yeah. So this is Pfizer's documents.
But is this the proximity to medical information that we're using? Is my dad's a doctor? So then I will start to ask pertinent questions. I went to the doctor today.
Right. Now you're an expert.
So then I can tell you whether or not you should talk about elderberry.
I had a mole checked. Does that count? Now I'm a medical expert. Someone else checked a mole.
So then later on, a Twitter COO, Parag Agrawal, who later would succeed Dorsey as the CEO, did say a few of us should brainstorm the ripple effects. And when someone says, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know. He's like, a few of us should brainstorm the ripple effects and potential fragmentation of public conversation. Like, he says this might not be sustainable for us to now start to basically curate content. And he's like, what are you suggesting? Not sure. But a few of us on staff maybe have a start.
It's a good, this is a great point, a great time to point out that Parag Agrawal was a total puppet mouthpiece, right? Put in there for no other reason other than to just get out of the way of all of these other people. I mean, literally, so they could push these agendas through. He was nothing but a piece of white paper milquetoast. That's exactly what he is, and I've heard that from multiple people.
Okay.
So he was not meant to be anything, not even a speed bump. So you can see that from that message there. Number 38, outside the United States, Twitter's decision to ban Trump raised alarms, including the French President Emmanuel Macron, German Prime Minister Angela Merkel, Mexico's President Manuel Lopez Obrador. So yeah, all of these world leaders are like, this doesn't seem right. Macron told an audience he didn't want to live in a democracy where the key decisions were made by private players. I want it to be decided by a law voted by your representative or by regulation, governance, democratically discussed, approved by democratic leaders.
Okay, he says that, but then he went along with COVID lockdowns without any of this democracy.
Right, he said this publicly behind closed doors. He was absolutely for the exact same sort of draconian things. Absolutely. Sure. Merkel's spokesperson called Twitter's decision to ban Trump from its platform problematic and added that freedom of opinion was elementary significance, is of elementary significance. On and on it goes. And then ultimately, the concerns about Twitter's efforts to censor news about Hunter Biden's laptop, blacklist disfavored views, and ban a president aren't about the past choices of executives in a social media company. They're about the power of a handful of people at a private company to influence the public discourse and democracy. But I kind of disagree with Barry Weiss on that point, because it was not just a few powerful people at a private company. They were having regular meetings with members of the deep state in government who were the FBI meeting regularly with them, Department of Homeland Security, members of the White House.
And in fact, it doesn't matter whether you like Trump or not. They were working against Trump. They were working to censor information that would hurt Biden while Trump was in the White House. Mm-hmm. And so this is absolutely an unelected body working against the elected leader.
They were actually arguing. They were arguing whether or not to ban the official White House presidential account and then turn it back on once Biden took over. Like, that's the direction they were heading.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you could see that they were wielding this power, much like a 1-2 punch. It's like, we don't like what the tone is. We see this with James Woods. Is it James Wood or James Woods, the actor?
I think it's Woods.
Where they said, we didn't like this. We didn't like this. He did something we didn't like, but we can't action it at this point. So let's hit him hard next time. So again, they're watching you like the goblins. We don't like the overall tone of what you're saying, so we're going to find a way to hurt you. And I find that really terrifying. It causes me a lot of times to just not participate. I just lurk on Twitter because you don't know what they're going to like or not like. I don't say a whole lot because of this invisible hand.
Right. And the invisible bot army that comes out of nowhere, which Elon over the past 24 hours has pictures of himself next to a gravestone with bots on it, like he got them. So I think we're seeing a lot of bot armies being destroyed over the past 24 hours as well. So that's great news for people who felt like they don't have a voice. They can't come forward and actually have a voice on Twitter or some of these other platforms because these bot armies swarm them, dogpile them, lead people into all sorts of anxiety and jumping off the platforms and doing all sorts of awful things. So that's Twitter Files 5.0. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at Redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to Redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.